what deductions are available to business owners. What deductions are available? So, what can they claim as a tax deduction on their business income tax return?
I find this question funny when I get it, and no offense to anyone. I love all of you customers. You know that I do. But when I get the question sometimes, and not necessarily from my existing clients because they have already worked with me, but as a new business owner, sometimes they are overwhelmed, like we mentioned before, with the tax season or just starting a business. And they would ask me, what can I deduct? What expenses can I include in my tax return? And the first thought that comes to mind is we cannot make up expenses, right?
Yeah,
Like what there is no choice. It's not like, oh yes, I can take a deduction, but I never had that as an expense in the business. Sometimes the question comes across that way. And
hmm
I warn my clients not to think of it that way because it sounds like I'm just going to pull expenses from somewhere that doesn't exist. So that aside, business expenses are deductible for tax purposes if they are necessary for you to run your business. They must be reasonable, a reasonable expense for the type of business that you own and for the industry that you're in, and it must be necessary. So reasonable is if I need to drive to see my client every day, I need that expense. Um, it's a necessary expense for me to go see my clients, assuming transportation, local public transportation is not very easy to access. So that's a necessary expense for me to run the business. What makes it reasonable is that I use a normal, an average car that I'm
yeah,
not buying a Porsche to buy to go to my clients, right? Or that I'm not flying there or taking a boat. That will make it unreasonable. So any expense, a laptop that you need to run your business, you need to use to rent an office space to have a meeting with your client, marketing materials, all of those expenses are deductible for tax purposes. When it comes to meals, there are a few exceptions, and these are meals to with the client, travel meals. There are some exceptions there. Some of it will be deductible and some not. And training, professional development to help you do better in your business could be deductible too. What about you, Ben?
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I think just to add to that, so you make very important point that it has to be reasonable, right? It has to be. I think that the uh, term that the IRS uses, it has to be ordinary and necessary in
Yes.
your line of business. So what may be ordinary and necessary for one line of business will be not ordinary and necessary in your line of business. So you might find someone. I have a client who takes trips to Disney as part of the company they run for training purposes, and that trips to Disney is ordinary and necessary in their line of business. For some, it may not be ordinary and necessary. So again, it's one important reason why you want to be talking to a professional who can uh, walk you through what is ordinary and necessary in your line of business. But yeah, we get that a lot. I actually got that question last week at a networking event. We were hanging out, networking, talking amongst each other, and then when folks hear you're a CPA, somebody just stepped up and said, "Hey, what can I deduct for my freelancing business? I do this, I do that," and it's not the same for everyone. What might be ordinary and necessary for me might not be ordinary and necessary for you. But yes, there's plenty of opportunities to take deductions out there. So,
Yes, definitely. Like someone who is not in the business of doing taxes, right, or preparing taxes, should not be buying tax software for unless they're doing their own taxes, right? That's a simple
yes.
example, but there are a lot out there that, like, I can justify training on, I don't know, dancing. Like, how does that benefit? Or maybe benefits my business in some way.
Marketing, maybe taking ballet lessons might present you differently to your clients. I don't know.
That's part of my wellness
Yes,
program. Okay,
exactly, exactly.
not to say that wellness is deductible. We're not saying that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
Um,
think people get where we are going with that. It's you have to be very careful, because what might work, and oftentimes folks speak to friends, and they tell them all kinds of stuff. You know, my friend said I could deduct this because I have a business. Well, you know, it depends. Back to your point, right? If it may be deductible for them, but maybe not necessarily for you. So something that people need to be aware of.